So with all the recent controversy going around at the moment, especially with Leafy being painted as a cyberbully again, I thought I'd change my content up a bit and play it just a little bit more safer, so I'm not really associated with any kind of cyberbullying. That's why I'm making a video on a little kid. But don't worry guys, he's famous, so he doesn't have feelings. I hope. That's right kids, today's video is on the internet sensation, Jacob Sartorius.
Okay, what's up guys?
Now with Jacob, I actually don't have a problem with him. He's actually an alright content creator. I mean, to be fair, whenever I see any of his vines, I'd much rather put a cat in a cement mixer than watch them until the end. But still, you know, each to their own. But today Jacob has gone next level. He has realised he himself is a meme. And he's come forth and made a reading hate comments video. Because making a reading hate comments video is such an original topic. No one has ever done that before. Oh, fuck. But anyways, kids, grab hold of your recently adopted review movie world. Because it's time to jump into this
Quantus meme.
What's up everybody? It's Jacob. I'm back for another weekly video. For this week, I was just on my phone and I was like, there's a lot of hate comments on Twitter, so I was like, let's read them and react to them because some of them are pretty mean.
Hi guys, internet sensation Jacob Sartorius here. Today I'm going to be making a video giving attention to people that absolutely despise me because I'm actually physically retarded. Seriously guys, rule one of the internet, if someone's just blatantly hating on you, you never give them attention. Like, even if you're right, you know? Like when someone's calling you out in the YouTube comments, don't respond to it. Just don't, because even if you're right, no one will give a shit and you're just giving more attention to it anyway.
And some of them are just straight out funny, so without further ado, this is Jacob Sartorius reads mean tweet.
I don't know whether it's Jacob himself or just the phone, but I'm just gonna put it out there. The phone literally looks like it's half the size of him. Look at that thing, it's fucking huge. He can barely hold it in his hands. But that's totally understandable because when you're Jacob Sartorius, you need those huge, powerful 4K images to spread across all your social media, and then iDubbbz will probably mock you about it 5 minutes later. Can we get a new trend setting, guys? Hashtag iDubbbz is a bully.
So, without further ado, this is Jacob Sartorius reads mean tweets.
Don't you just love emojis, guys? How they represent our current generation and current social culture. The fact that someone's friend or family member may have passed away and you can summarize that entire experience with an emoji. Aren't they just great? They're definitely not degrading us as a human species in any way whatsoever. I can't wait for the emoji movie. I'm sure it's going to be an amazing experience and there'll definitely be nothing I can criticize about it because there's nothing wrong with emojis.
So this first comment comes from 99 Solzansky, and she has to say, you're like 5. It's time for daycare, guys, so I gotta leave right now for daycare. I gotta go. Just kidding.
So to those that haven't really caught on from the first insult he read out, the insults are going to be pretty fucking weak. He's obviously not going to be picking out insults that are genuinely damning. He's just going to be reading insults probably from 8-year-old children. 8-year-old children that were typing it on their Samsung phone while arguing with the moderator about to be banned on Minecraft. So we got a tweet from 99 Suzowski and she says, "You bitch-faced nigger cuck beta male, I hope you jump into a window full of broken glass and break your neck, lip dick faggot Jew. Please like and subscribe."
This next one comes from Drugged to Charlie at Jacob Sartorius. Rad. Wow. I mean, maybe I could be a rat. You don't know.
I actually don't know what's worse, the insults or the way that he's responding to them. Both of them are just incredibly stale and weak, honestly. And the worst thing is, you low-key know that 90% of the people that he mentions in this video made their Twitter account simply to tweet at him and call him various slurs. This is a perfect example of how our generation is one of the best out there, you know, right next to the amazing Emoji movie. I just gotta add that in again, guys, the Emoji movie. Go see it when it comes out, please. I wasn't paid to say this.
Saint Kardashian. Her name's Becky. She said, "Stop breathing." That really hurts. Stop breathing.
Okay, to be fair, one part that is probably unintentionally funny is the fact how he just says "stop breathing" with that really happy royalty-free music in the background. You know, it just really fits, guys. You wake up in the morning, hear some royalty-free ukulele, then Jacob Sartorius says to you, "Stop breathing." Really family-friendly stuff.
Stop breathing. So I was like, Becky, come on. I'm sure she's an innocent girl. Then I go to her profile, right? And this is the picture that I found as her profile picture. Nothing against her, she's beautiful. But, you know, like, I was like, okay, she's like 14, 15, maybe 15. And I go to her profile, right? And it says, proud Christian, mother of 2. She works at Wendy's part-time.
Right, Jacob, I understand that you're a little boy. An adorable, innocent little internet sensation, but if someone on their Twitter bio states that they are a proud Christian, mother at 2, working at Wendy's, they're probably a troll account. And the fact that I looked them up and they've been suspended, they've probably told a lot of small children, including yourself, to quote-unquote stop breathing. So, you know, don't act like this is a legitimate account, because it clearly isn't.
Gabby Harwood 13. I think she has a profile of Tori Canley in her profile. She said, someone just told me my little brother looks like Jacob Sartorius, and now I cannot look at him the same. Wow.
The thing is, guys, when you're reading these roasts aimed at Jacob, you gotta think to yourself, does the person that sent it to him still use emojis unironically? If you answered yes, you'd be absolutely right, because these insults are absolute shit. Now, I'm not saying they've got to be like really hard and personal and hit home to actually be funny, but still, these are just garbage, man. This is like in the sandpit insults when you're like 5 years old.
Stop breathing. Wow. I'm not sure if that's a good thing, like, oh my gosh, Jacob Sartorius, like when she sees him, or it could, I'm guessing that's not the right way. But yeah, we can always think positive.
I can't actually take this seriously. I couldn't tell whether he was making a genuine dissection of that roast, or he was just stumbling and mumbling. I mean, to be fair, guys, this is Jacob Sartorius, the boy that tweets like an illegal immigrant in a Donald Trump campaign, saying how great Donald Trump is. I mean, if it was up to me, I would much prefer a reading hate comments from the hermaphrodite kid than Jacob Sartorius.
Hermaphrodite or hermaphrodite? I don't know what that is, but I'm just going to assume it's something to do with homosexuality and atheism or something.
So now we're moving on to the YouTube comment. The YouTube comments are very clever, actually. Like, I did not expect this. So this first one comes from Sassy Survivors. Is it odd how I cared about the cat more than the actual video? I listened a bit though.
Okay, we know for a fact at this point that this video is staged. Not a single person in the YouTube comments would form an insult like that. No way, I am not buying it. Maybe in Twitter when the kids actually stuck around in English class for more than 5 seconds, but on YouTube, every person insults with some kind of jumbled swear word. Whenever I read the YouTube comments, it's either kill yourself, some retard saying nice shirt, or someone promoting their channel on YouTube and they've got like 10 subscribers and make CSGO videos.
Yo, she got the actual meaning of the video. The video was meant to be about my cat. She came in frame for like 10 seconds and she just stole the spotlight.
I tell you what, guys, Jacob Sartorius is the pinnacle of comedy. More of a comedian than I could ever be. What I'm going to do is place a laughter track every time Jacob drops one of his amazingly hilarious jokes.
My cat's a great actor. She's been in a lot of movies like The Lord of the Rings. Call him JC Outlaw. Jacob, did you get the bleach I sent you?
Okay, that's more like it. That's a proper insult you'd receive in the YouTube comments. Did you see little Jacob's face? He's sunk into depression because that insult hurt him. That insult hit home.
I'm gonna send him a jar of poop. Okay, we got it. And on the note, say, smell it. It's peanut butter, chocolate, and he will inhale his life. It's poop.
That was solely the most unfunniest comment I've ever read in my entire life. You can even see the complete and total lack of empathy in his face when he reads that. You just see the emptiness, the void, how 2 world wars to give people the ability to say poop jokes on the internet. That's honestly enough Jacob Sartorius for one day. Jacob, if you're watching this, you're probably not because I'm fucking irrelevant. I wish you the best in your life and hopefully no one will send you a jar of fecal matter because I'm pretty sure that's breaking several human rights. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. 1 like and I'll give you a ticket to see the Emoji Movie.
She keeps the sunset bright with movement in her eyes. She knows she gets away with murder. Swallows up your heart of gold, and I don't know just where we've got to
Hermaphrodite or hermaphrodite? I don't know what that is, but I'm just going to assume it's something to do with homosexuality and atheism or something.